Hello and very good evening to all our viewers. This is WION Wallet. I'm Sumit Chaturvedi. Let's see what is making headlines in the world of business this evening. Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Lee fought back tears and denied wrongdoing as prosecutors sought a 12-year jail term for him on charges that include bribing the former Korean president. Bitcoin surges above $300,000 to reach a new all-time high over the weekend, less than a week after a split that worried some investors. SUVs and high-end cars in India are likely to become costlier as Goods and Services Tax Council is said to have decided to raise the cess on luxury cars to 25% from 15% currently. And Indian markets have ended in red today. Now straight to our top story that is coming from South Korea. Samsung Electronics Vice Chairman Whiley fought back tears and denied wrongdoing today as prosecutors sought a 12-year jail term on charges that include bribing the former president to help cement control of the South Korean tech giant Samsung. Lee, the de facto leader of one of Asia's largest conglomerates, has been in detention since February on trial for charges ranging from embezzlement to perjury. The charges were a result of a scandal that gripped the country for months and led to the ouster of former President Park Geun-hye. Lee will face the longest prison term on record for a South Korean conglomerate executive if the court finds him guilty when it makes a ruling on August 25th, 2 days before Lee's current period of detention ends. Other charges he faces include wrongfully transferring assets overseas and hiding the proceeds of a crime. The prosecution has said Samsung's intent in paying up for two funds backed by Park and sponsoring the equestrian career of daughter of a confidante at the center of the scandal. This was to get government support for efforts to cement Lee's control of smartphone to biopharmaceutical major Samsung. Park also sought jail terms for other Samsung executives linked to the case, including 10 years for Choi Gi-hyung, former head of Samsung's corporate strategy office. The defense reiterated Lee's denial of wrongdoing, questioning whether the prosecution was relying on public sentiment to secure a prison term for Lee, who is aged 49 and whose father, the group patriarch Lee Kuan-hye, was hospitalized in 2014. Whiley's lawyers argued that his so-called overarching intention of cementing ownership control was a fictional construct made up by prosecutors, with moves such as the merger of two Samsung's affiliates in 2015 aimed merely at ensuring survival and growth of individual companies. So clearly a big jolt it would be for one of the tech giants in the globe. Apple would be really happy because Apple will be the one who is going to gain if Samsung loses. Well, Samsung in this case is going to lose some image, or there would be dent to its image if the charges are proved to be true. Well, prosecutors have demanded 12-year jail term for Samsung's next heir, but it's still to be seen whether judges go by that ruling on August 25 or not, while he's been in custody since Feb this year. So clearly prosecution charges on Lee, if we tell you, are that Lee wrongfully transferred assets overseas. That's the first charge. What prosecutor has said, well, Samsung paid up for funds. That's what prosecutors say, that the funds were given to government to back, or we can say that, to get the backing of ex-President Park for cementing his position at Samsung. Well, he tried to get government support. That's what prosecutors said, that he tried to get some kind of backing from the government. Well, support was needed to cement firm's control. Well, support needed by Lee, and Lee has paid, he paid bribes to former President Park Geun-hye. Well, he is now, we can say that, been ousted since then. But there was defense also of Samsung ex-chief. Well, these defense said the prosecution is relying on public sentiment, and that shouldn't be the case. Also, the defense was that accusations just a fictional construct. That's how Lee was defended, while prosecutors have demanded 12 years in jail for Lee. Now over to UK, where British consumer spending fell for the third month in a row in July, in its longest losing streak in over 4 years, according to data released, in another sign that the impact of last year's Brexit vote is rippling through to households. Overall consumer spending, the engine of British economy, dropped by 0.8% in real terms last month compared with July 2016. Payments company Visa has said that in a report. Well, that was quicker than June's 0.2% fall, and following a further drop in May, it marks the longest consecutive decline since Feb 2013, when a still frail economy was struggling to recover from the financial crisis. Last week, the Bank of England downgraded its forecast for economic growth this year and next, due partly to lower than expected wage rises, and it sees a weaker outlook for household spending than for other sectors of the economy. Visa's data chimed with other signs that households are under financial pressure, from lackluster retail sales to falling new car registrations and mortgage approvals. A fall in the value of sterling since the Brexit vote in June last year has stoked inflation at a time when wage growth is slowing, squeezing incomes. Consumer confidence dropped to a one-year low in July. And staying with UK, this time news is coming as far as Brexit is concerned. Britain is prepared to pay up to $47 billion as part of a deal to leave the European Union. Sunday Telegraph reported on that. The European Union has floated a figure of $67 billion and wants significant progress on settling Britain's liabilities before talks can start on complex issues such as future trading agreements. Reports also said British officials were likely to offer to pay $17 billion a year for 3 years after leaving the EU in March 2019. Then finalize the total alongside detailed trade talks. Payments would only be made as part of a deal that included a trade agreement. David Davis, the British minister in charge of Brexit talks, said on July 20 that Britain would honour its obligations to the European Union, but declined to confirm that Brexit would require net payments. Last week, the Bank of England said Brexit uncertainty was weighing on the economy. Finance Minister Philip Hammond wants to avoid unsettling businesses further. So we can say that overall Brexit situation is there, and Brexit bill of UK would be $47 billion. Reports said that UK is ready to pay up to $47 billion to enable the Brexit. And UK will offer, EU has floated $67 billion Brexit bill so far for United Kingdom. The payments will be made part of a trade deal. And let's talk about an interesting topic, cryptocurrency Bitcoin, that has surged above $3,000 to reach a new all-time high over the weekend, less than a week after a split that worried some investors. Bitcoin peaked on Saturday at a record $3,360 according to Coindesk.com. By Sunday, the cryptocurrency had settled down to $3,286 with a market cap of $53.4 billion. According to CoinMarket.com, Saturday marked the first time Bitcoin surpassed $50 billion in market cap. Prices have jumped more than 10% in the past week after Bitcoin on Tuesday launched a new version of its currency with a different configuration known as Bitcoin Cash. Bitcoin prices initially fell more than 5% as the new currency confused markets but quickly recovered. Now, despite its volatility, Bitcoin has more than tripled its value this year, crossing $2,000 threshold in May and hitting $3,000 for the first time in June before crashing back to earth and shedding about 20% of its value before continuing its meteoric gains. Competing digital currency, Ethereum tagged along for the weekend rally, surging 12% on Saturday. So Bitcoin, the cryptocurrency, has surged to an all-time high, moving over around more than $3,000 for the first time in history. Cryptocurrency has zoomed past $3,200 over the weekend. That's a big gain for Bitcoin that is traded at over rupees 2 lakh per coin in India. So India value is over rupees 2 lakh per coin of Bitcoin. And the baby brother Bcash is now struggling to hold above $200. That's a Bitcoin's baby brother and it's been divided from Bitcoin. The CoinDesk price index says Bitcoin peaked at $3,242. Bitcoin touched levels over $3,000 in June and the price fell below $2,000 owing to uncertainty later on. But now it has touched an all-time high. Let's see the graphical representation of surging Bitcoin in January 2017. It was trading at $800. In Feb, it went up to $900. Later on, $1,200, $1,300, $2,000, and July, $2,800. And in August, it has surpassed $3,300 per coin. That's a huge surge in Bitcoin, the historically highest as far as Bitcoin's value is concerned. Now, it sounds very technical. Bitcoin is a cryptocurrency. And Bitcoin, what is Bitcoin and why is it surging? What impact will it have on life of people, normal person? To talk more on this, I'm joined by my in-house tax expert, Ankit Tuteja. Ankit, thanks for joining as before. First of all, we would like to understand what does that surge mean and how will it impact the Bitcoin overall, the currency exchange and everything?
So Sumit, we have been hearing about Bitcoin for quite some time. People have been dealing in Bitcoins now. But for a layman to understand what is Bitcoin, in technical terms, it's a cryptocurrency, something that can be encrypted. But when you talk about layman, they do not understand. So in simpler terms, you can say it's like having gold, which keeps on fluctuating. Mostly it goes up. So it's like having gold, and you can trade in gold, like you can buy stuff and pay in gold at some places. So it's like having gold, which keeps on fluctuating and mostly up. So that's how for layman Bitcoin is. But when you talk about why Bitcoin is getting popular, it's for the simple reason that there is anonymity attached to it. For example, if you use your debit card or credit card, if you make internet banking, all your personal details and other details are involved there. But when there is a currency that helps you transact without sharing any of your details, this is something that is actually attracting and enticing a lot of online customers.
And what does that surge mean? How is that decided and how Bitcoin arrived at $3,200 per coin?
So Sumit, it's not very simple to understand what does surge mean. So when you talk about how Bitcoin is generated, it's basically a digital currency. A lot of machines go into making one coin. And how it happens, like a lot of machines are placed and they keep running throughout the night, over the weeks, and different codes are generated. So it's not a simple thing to understand how it surges. It basically depends on how many, it's about demand and supply. If demand is more and the supply is less, of course the surge will go up. And right now Bitcoin has reached a position, it has reached a stage where the demand is like more than the supply, because Bitcoin also, when it was created, it was clearly mentioned that up to a point number of Bitcoins will be generated, and now it is reaching that that mark where the limit. So it's to do with the demand and supply basically.
And Ankit, can it be a good investment product as well? And if yes, how can somebody buy it, sell it, and even invest in Bitcoins?
If you go by how people have been dealing in Bitcoins, it's definitely an investment. But again, I would warn my viewers and watchers of WION that currently there is no framework, no regulation to govern the process of Bitcoin. If you transact in Bitcoin, if it goes wrong, there is no governing body that can actually get you some justice, that can help you recover the money. So from what it looks, it's a good investment, but again, there is no framework to regulate the transactions in Bitcoins.
And we hear people buy and sell in Bitcoin as well. They buy products and sell products. How do they trade in Bitcoins? Where do they trade all that?
So it's like when you talk about, say, a digital wallet like Paytm, you enter the amount, you enter the sender's mobile number, and you make the payment. So for a user, it's that simple. You have your Bitcoin wallet. You just mention the Bitcoin address of the person you are sending it to, the number of Bitcoins you are sending. So for a user, it's that simple. So it's not complicated. It's not that you have to go through a tedious process to transact in Bitcoins.
And also we're hearing, Ankit, that government of India is now seriously thinking about legalizing Bitcoin. The talks are stuck. Who will regulate it? Reserve Bank of India or Security and Exchange Bank of India? What will happen if that is legalized in India? How will it impact or change the way you and I transact?
So as you said that the government of India is thinking about it, recently Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, he told the Lok Sabha there has been a notable increase in the way Bitcoins are being used in India. Clearly there's a market for Bitcoins in India as well. But right now there is no clear track of, as I said, there is no governing body, there is no framework, there is no regulatory framework. So in the absence of a regulatory framework, it's difficult to monitor and track the activities. And now, so Department of Economic Affairs has constituted a committee to figure out, ascertain that how transactions are happening, what is the market of Bitcoin in India, and accordingly they will come up with a regulatory framework for it. And in May, they asked for public comments. So public comments are flowing in, and eventually I guess there will be some verdict on this as well.
And from $800 in the beginning of the year to around $3,300, around 4 times jump. From here on, where do you see it surging now?
For now, it will go on increasing, because remember there was a time when the amount of gold would go up like anything, and then came a point when it gets stuck. And right now it keeps fluctuating, but not as aggressively as it would do in the past, maybe a decade or 2 decades ago. So it's to do with the same. When you talk about Bitcoin, the process is quite similar. That right now very few people have Bitcoin. So it's like having monopoly over certain coins. And now when the market is increasing, more and more people are asking for Bitcoins. So again, it's a demand supply. It's something that we all have learned in economics.
And also talking about Bitcoins, just give us some perspective about the historical, aspect of it. When did they start? When did they start coming in? And how did they come about, being used in the public sphere?
So there is no clear trace on who started it, while a name has been doing the rounds that this person started it, Santoshi.
Is Indian, you will say that?
No, not Indian. But again, there is a theory around it that it's a mix of different, the initials of different companies. Someone is saying he's a person who started it. Some people are saying it was a body which, and the name actually stood for initials of different companies. So there's no clarity on who started it. And it started a few years ago, and it has been in the discussions for quite some years now, maybe 4 to 5 years now. I mean, the surge has been in the last 4 or 5 years now. And going by the pace at which Bitcoin transactions are happening, I can see that in the next few years, it's going to go up only.
And suppose, Ankit, you and I are sitting in the studio, and today if we want to go and start transacting in Bitcoins or sell or buy, what is the way to do that?
It depends that, for example, you have to look for a seller who is accepting Bitcoins. For example, as I say, Paytm. Today, everyone receives Paytm, but I'm sure there must be sellers who are not receiving Paytms. So it depends that you have to figure out the sellers who are actually receiving Bitcoins. If you have Bitcoins, you can trade in Bitcoins.
All right, Ankit, thank you as always for getting us all these important details. We were talking to Ankit, and he was telling us how Bitcoins can be used. What are the Bitcoins and why are they surging? What is historical high they are making day after day? This weekend they touched historical high of around $3,200 and the market cap was at $5 billion, more than $5 billion. That's how Bitcoin is. It's such a big, we can say that, cryptocurrency or alternate currency that is emerging. Now staying with the global news and coming to Germany, where Audi may have to forfeit its profit as a part of penalty hot Dieselgate scandal. The Munich prosecutors are investigating Audi employees for fraud, and as German rules allow the seizure of profits made from illegal conduct, Audi may meet the same fate another firms Siemens, which faced the same type of review during a corruption probe about a decade ago, settled with Munich prosecutors for $706 million. Audi was notified about the step and will continue to work constructively with prosecutors, Audi has said. Audi parent Volkswagen is already facing the same review by the prosecutors. And the prosecutors are investigating Audi employees for fraud, and Audi might have to let go of its profit as penalty. Well, in German parlance, we can say that the profits can be forfeited if the company is found guilty. Earlier, Siemens AG, another big engineering major from German soil, had to forfeit profit because it couldn't, we can say that, meet some standards, and it couldn't satisfy the authorities. And coming back to tech news once again, Apple plans to release a version of its smartwatch later this year that can connect directly to cellular networks. Bloomberg reported citing people familiar with the matter. Some of new models for the Apple Watch will be equipped with LTE chips and be able to perform many tasks without needing an iPhone to be in range. Currently, the Apple Watch needs to be connected to an iPhone to send messages, get directions from maps and stream music. Intel will supply the LTE modems for the new watch. According to reports, the iPhone maker is already in talks with carriers in the US and Europe about offering the cellular version of the Apple Watch. And coming to electric car maker Tesla. Tesla has lowered the base price of its Model X SUV to $79,500 and said improving margins were behind the move. Tesla said the margins have improved as it is ramping up production of its new lowered price Model 3. Some analysts have been concerned that the launch of Model 3, whose base price is $35,000, would steer some potential buyers away from Model X SUV to that lowered price sedan. But CEO Elon Musk said that demand had not waned for the luxury electric sport utility vehicle. The most expensive version of Model X, the P100D with fastest acceleration and longer range, cost $1,045,000. Musk said on a call with analysts earlier this week that the launch of the Model 3 had not cannibalized Model X sales, and the demand for the Model X as well as the Model S had actually increased with the release of lower priced vehicle. The Model 3, marketed as a car for the masses, begins at $35,000 before incentives, but the longer range version is priced at $44,000. Let's come again on Tesla, and the price of Model X SUV is now around $79,500, while that price has been cut from Tesla's side. Tesla is said that improving margins are behind the move. There are margins which are better, and that's why it is compensating the higher cost SUV with better margins. Tesla is ramping up production of its Model 3 car as well. That means easier supply for the customers who have booked Model 3. In India, many CEOs have also booked Model 3. Model 3 is marketed as a car for the masses. It's going to be electric car, but it's going to be more for the masses as far as Model 3 is concerned. And Alphabet's Google is developing a technology that media companies could use to create stories similar to those found on Snapchat's Discovered platform. Google's project, dubbed STEM, is in the early stages of testing with publishers. Tech firms include Google, Snapchat's owner Snap, and Facebook are racing to develop publishing tools for media companies, hoping to fill their own apps with news, entertainment, sports, and other content. The challenge for such tools is making them faster and easier to use than a web browser, while creating an interesting experience for users. Snapchat's Discover tab is distinct in the way it integrates video clips with text and photos. Let's talk about the markets. In India, the equity benchmarks began the week on a sluggish note today, but the Nifty managed to hold above 10,000 mark. Sensex closed down 51 points at 32,273, while Nifty ended lower by 9 points at 10,057 points. The market breadth was narrow as around 1,500 shares advanced against a decline of 1,000 shares, while 178 shares were unchanged as far as markets are concerned. Well, let's talk about some factors that will impact markets going forward this week, Indian markets and global markets both. Though first of the factors is next batch of quarterly results in Indian market. Some of the results have already been announced. They have met expectations, and going forward, new results will come. IIP numbers are also slated to be released this week, and they will decide the market. GST Council meetings have been happening, and they are also impacting Indian markets. US jobs report has come, and there is no point of concern, and global markets will react on US job report. The global cues are other cues, crude price, dollar price. All these big factors are to look out for going forward as far as Indian and global markets are concerned. Well, that's all we have for this edition of WION Wallets. Thanks for watching us, and thanks for sharing your Monday evening with us. Stay tuned to WION.